What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to IndieQuest, a celebration of the indie and obscure. Your home for all that good indie game talking. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and I'm here with one of my wonderful co-hosts, Steve. How's it going today?
It's going pretty dang good. I slammed a big plate of chicken nuggets right before we recorded, and then downed a cup of coffee, so I've got a real mix of sleepy and energy at the same time. I'm prepared for the vibe of the show, is what I'm essentially saying to you.
And we also have Captain Drachma with me today. How's it going, man?
It's going good. I got some good viewing earlier of that eclipse that only comes around every 20 or 30 years. Did you guys happen to get a peek at it?
No, Minnesota's already pretty bad for like catching a good glimpse of it, and it was like a really overcast, basically rainy day. So we got nothing. I had some friends and stuff that made a little bit of a pilgrimage out to a good spot to view it, and they sent like recordings and photos and stuff. So I got to see kind of secondhand some of it though.
That's cool. I mean, I was working outside today, and it didn't even get dark for me because it was already overcast. So I'm like, oh, it happened? Okay, cool. And I saw some videos, so that's not too entertaining, I guess. But, that's what you get for living in the PNW when it's overcast 90% of the time.
It was a little cloudy here. Not super cloudy, like partly, And, I mean, because we are in that whole trail that they had going on, right, from that was going catty corner up the U.S., we are inside, like basically smack dab in the middle of one of those lines. So it got super dark. It was nighttime for about a minute, and then it just gets light again. It's kind of wild.
Cool.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous, man. I wish I had got the full experience. The best I did was I booted up my ITG machine and I played a song on there called Eclipse. That was my honor of the day.
Heck yeah!
I gave it to.
The way I celebrated is last weekend I tried the Sonic Eclipse float, and I was pretty underwhelmed by it. I'll be honest, like the ice cream was soft serve, but they put like so much sprinkles on it. That's all you tasted, and it was mid. It was mid, I would say.
If I was gonna guess, I've never seen this thing before. If I was gonna guess the flavor profile of an Eclipse float, I would say it's root beer with like dark raspberry syrup and a scoop of like cookies and cream ice cream. How far off am I?
That sounds better. You're actually pretty far off because it's actually a slushy. It's a slushy. It's like a dark berry slushy or something. It's like almost black, and it's berry flavored. And then they just put like a dollop of white soft serve and just a bunch of like confetti sprinkles that look like stars on top of it.
Okay.
So yeah. It was fine. It was worth the $2, I guess. I paid for it. So
I've never heard of anyone putting ice cream into a slush. I don't know if that's a common thing where you guys are from, but
no.
Yeah, okay.
I think of slush as distinct from ice cream in all ways. Like the idea of marrying those two feels like hollowing out the center of a hamburger and jamming a hot dog down into it.
I agree.
It kind of, it didn't really work. I'll be honest with you, but I'll try anything once. My mouth's a garbage disposal. Might as well use it from time to time.
I get it, man.
Oh well. So, what you guys been playing lately? That's my question. I like to do this every once in a while. What games you been grinding on?
Well, the last time you asked, I was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this time I'm still playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Although I've been in if anyone sees my YouTube channel ever, I've been in a little trophy kick lately. So I've been going back and revisiting some old games too. So I went back and played some like Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Dude, you remember that game? That game came out. That was pretty fun. Went back and played a whole bunch of stuff. So it's been like kind of a Rebirth has been my main squeeze, and then I've just been sort of dipping back into stuff I played in the past, getting a little nostalgic otherwise. It's been pretty fun.
I finally eclipsed the 50-hour mark in Octopath Traveler 2. I think that we didn't discuss live on podcast, but we discussed prior to our last episode, that I had not played Octopath Traveler 2 in too long. we will say, right? I think, Steve, you mentioned something that on Backloggery, if you don't play it within 2 weeks, it gets grayed out. I was certainly within that territory and probably... So that made me feel bad. I'm glad we talked about it because I was like, you know what? I got to hook up the old HDMI cable to the PS4 and power her up and do something. And that's the nice thing about that game is you can always do something in like an hour. So I probably played 5 hours or so over the last week or two. But other than that, I've been playing Balatro. I haven't really played Balatro much in the last week because I got addicted to the game that I brought today.
Oh,
so nice.
Yes. All right.
Nice little tease.
Nice little tease.
Yeah, before the show, I mentioned to Steve I've been playing the most like 6.5 or 7 out of 10 game ever, Immortals of Aveum.
Oh, I saw you put that in the Discord.
Yeah, it's pretty much 2006 the video game. Like everything from the corny like proper nouns every 2 seconds, dialogue to the crash zoom on people's faces randomly for no reason and randomly glitching and stuttery here and there. It's just choice PS3 game that I'm playing on a PS5. So it's a vibe for sure. So I'm playing that. I did a little hell diving with not really too much with anybody on the Discord yet, but I tried out Helldivers and that's a pretty cool game. Good times. Just shooting some bugs and some robots.
Yeah,
it seems like a good time.
Yeah, there's been a lot of clamoring for that game in the Discord. I think Briz is really into it, it seems like. So
he is.
Yeah,
yeah, I jumped in on Bad Times Johnny's on his game just randomly. He's like level 45 or 46.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I'm just a little level 4 dude running behind you, just palling around with you. Hopefully I can kill some bugs with you. You know?
Yeah, that's cool, though.
It's nice that they let you. That's one that I've been just kind of avoiding because I'm like, oh, if I get really into it, it's going to eat into so much of my other game playing time. It's going to be hard to schedule all my enjoyable homework that I have for all my various ventures. So,
right, yeah, it's the infinite game. There's no ending, so it's like it's just jump in and do some missions and level up your dude and help this this fake fascist super Earth win. It's war. That's basically, Starship Troopers or whatever. It's a good game. It's a good time, though. Besides that, I played a little bit of a Pepper Grinder, but I didn't finish it yet. So that's one that we might talk about in the future. Who knows?
Sure.
So far, I'm enjoying it. Reminds me of Donkey Kong Country a little bit. A little bit of platforming fun, good times there. So, yeah, I did pick that one up.
Nice. Looks great. I'm hoping to get to it by year's end for sure.
Yeah, there's just certain games that come out that it's just kind of a guarantee it's going to show up on the show at some point, right? I feel like a lot of Devolver games are essentially a lock to at some point or another show up here. A lot of the Annapurna games are too, and there's just other ones where you're like, yeah, obviously, between the three of us, one of us is going to play it and bring it.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on the indie game talk here. Any other games you guys want to shout out that you've been playing, or good to move on?
I think
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so I wanted to bring up this thing called the Triple I Initiative, and I'll kind of go over what it is. And this is actually going to be posting the day this episode goes live on Wednesday. It's a big event that the teams that brought Slay the Spire, Darkest Dungeon, and Dead Cells, so that's Mega Crit, Red Hook Studios, and Evil Empire, are putting together a 45-minute showcase of some of the quote-unquote triple I games, so like they're the bigger indie games, and it's 30 games they're going to be showcasing, and it's supposed to be about 45 minutes long. They say the goal is to have a straight-to-the-point show packed with announcements as a collective of studios to speak directly to the players, the people who have been directly supporting us since day one. So I just thought this was a really cool thing to shout out. It's very on-brand for our show, too. A celebration of indie games. It's pretty much just what this is going to be. So I say check that out if you haven't yet.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea, and obviously I'm always excited to see more, news, reveal gameplay and stuff. But I like that collective approach of them like pooling together and saying, "Hey, let's do what we can to bring up like another wave of talent." That's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people want to see what the next thing the Slay the Spire people are doing too, which is pretty cool. The rumor is, or well, I don't even know if it's a rumor. It might be semi-announced. The people that made Dead Cells are making another Prince of Persia game that's a roguelike.
Oh, I did hear the rumors about that. That, I think, could be a lot of fun. After playing the Lost Crown, I'm like, we could definitely do for like another spin on like stylish, acrobatic 2D Prince of Persia. I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
So I have a question about that. This is an interesting topic, I think. If a known indie dev makes a game in an already AAA series, what is that?
Confusing.
I would consider,
that is confusing.
I would consider it indie on a case-by-case basis. Like, well, what would Cadence of Hyrule be?
That was just going to be my example. I don't know that we could in good conscience bring a Nintendo-published game to the show, but it's like...
Right.
We'd have to like invent... this sounds like something we would do. Is just invent some sort of special episode type or topic to be able to discuss those kind of like outside of the sanctity and the wrap of the quest log or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Call them the bubble games. They're on the bubble.
Because we have brought games that are like spin-off internal studio, like pseudo indie type stuff before. Sometimes a AAA developer like an Ubisoft or something will have like a small internal team that's kind of like doing their own separate thing and releasing like fresher, more indie games. I think we brought a couple of those before, so there's precedent. All right, you could argue it in a court of indie that you could bring in.
No, it's kind of reminds you of that Tales of Hikinzaro Zhao, that one that's coming out like what is it, the end of the month? The EA published one, but it's a EA published game, but it's an indie game studio that's making it, so it's kind of like that's another one that's kind of like a cusper or something, on the edge there.
Yeah, exactly.
This whole conversation is funny because I have recently been going through our own backlog. Mostly, I have started listening to IndieQuest episodes before I was on them.
Oh,
I think I mentioned this to you guys a little bit. No. I mean, it was good.
Oof.
I was listening to, I think, episode 12. I can't remember. I just kind of click on one. I haven't been going in order. I've just been clicking around. And on that one, you guys got a question either from, I think maybe from Musty, that was like, how do you know if a game is indie or something along those lines? And and it's funny because we debate it so much now, whereas back then it was more of you guys weren't talking about it as much. So you guys were like, you both basically landed on it's a feeling.
It's a gut thing, man.
Yeah.
It's funny.
You know it when you see it, okay?
Yep. That's pretty much what you said back then. So I'm glad you've remained consistent over the last 4 years.
Yep.
I know we're mostly PG on this show, but it's like porn. You know when you see it.
That's exactly right. You're aware whether or not you would show it to your children. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of porn, I brought an indie game.
Oh.
You said you were addicted to it, so I'm not surprised.
An addiction.
Let's go.
Yeah. Segue. All right, so I did want to go first because first I'm not entirely sure. This could take me a long time or a very short amount of time. I'm not entirely sure how this review or whatever you want to call it is going to go. But I played.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Before you jump in, do you want to tell the folks what the quest log is and what a main quest and a side quest is?
You know what, Josh? I could, but you do it so well. So why don't you?
Oh, the reverso double transition. Now that is podcasting class right there.
Okay. The quest log is an ever-growing list of it's at hundreds of games at this point, or 100, maybe over 100 games, I'll say. But it's a recommended list of awesome indie games you should check out. Every game we bring to the show is a recommendation. There are 2 tiers to the recommendation, though. The main tier is the main quest, which is an easy recommendation to anybody, an incredible experience, or a quote-unquote certified banger. That's a badass game that you should play right away. And then side quest game is still an awesome game, still recommended, but there might be a caveat or two, or it might be a niche category that isn't for everybody. But if you're into that style, check out that game.
Yeah.
There you go.
One thing I'll add to that before I let Drachma spend a little or a long time talking about this game is remember, too, it's not a democratic process, all right? We don't consult with each other. There's no voting. So one man's main quest is another man's side quest. If it's on the sheet, all right, you just go play that game. It's a good video game.
Mm-hmm. There's more democracy when we get to second opinion episodes, then we can shout at each other theoretically. But it still doesn't matter. The game was still voted in, so you can be mad about it if you want to, but it still stays where it is. So.
That's very true.
We lock it in. When one of us like wills it into existence, that's set in stone forever.
Can't be changed.
Maybe
you can't change. Yeah. I think Steve famously says that we can't ever change that Google Sheets ever. That's exactly what it is.
It's unfortunate. I wish there was a feature to move things around, but there's not. So
exactly. All right. With all that, I will roll into my game today. I highly, highly doubt that either of you have heard of it, but I will be excited if either of you have. My game is called Mimic Logic. Have either of you heard of this game?
Almost certainly no. Yes. No, definitely not.
Okay.
Oh, not what I expected at all from the graphics.
It is interesting. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
All right. It was released this year. So I know I said last episode, it's not my goal to play games this year. But in my Steam perusing, I have found several games that I want to play, and they all released this year. So I guess maybe I'm backing off that goal, or I'm going to do a similar goal as I did last year. Who knows? By the end of the year, we'll see. But it was released February 22nd, 2024. Developed by, I believe it's pronounced NeoSoft. Platform currently is only PC. I could see it coming to consoles if it gets enough recognition, if it gets enough accolades. But I think it plays well on PC, and the way it currently is set up, there would have to be a few things changed to get it to consoles, I think. An overview. And this is one of my favorite genres. It's not genre soup, but it's one of the favorite genres I've ever had to put on here. It is a logic puzzle roguelike.
I'm here for that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Let's go.
So the roguelike portion, think Sheeran the Wanderer a little bit, or if you guys or any of the audience has ever played the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games.
Oh,
it's a little bit like that, but don't go in thinking, I'm getting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, because it's way more dumbed down. The focal point, I would say, of this game is the logic puzzle part. The roguelike's kind of tacked on it, but it really makes a lot of sense to have both of them together, I will say. Okay. But before we get into the gameplay, we'll go run through the stuff that I would say is definitely second fiddle to the gameplay eventually. Presentation, you guys are hopefully looking at a couple screenshots. Very basic 16-bit style, very, pixel art. Not a lot of color, mostly brown everywhere you go, because you are basically diving down further and further into these different dungeons, basically amount to caves that have treasure chests in them. Very basic. Do not go into this thinking you're going to be stunned by the polish that this game is going to give you. That's not what it's doing, and I don't think they are apologizing for not giving us more. This is what they wanted to have as their presentation, or maybe it's all they could do, but I will say I brought it here, so it's definitely worth playing beyond just what it looks like.
Yeah, this sounds like an insult, but it's not. It has the look of like a relatively unmodified like game maker or RPG maker game. It looks like it's kind of templatized in a way.
Right. And I think I don't know that I ever saw, it was definitely made in RPG Maker, but a lot of reviews on Steam basically said that. So I would, and I'm assuming there are people out there on Steam that are reviewing that have also made games in RPG Maker. But yes, I agree with you. This is a much lesser polished, inferior version of something that might be in the To the Moon series, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yep.
Story. You play as someone. I honestly cannot, and I couldn't do the research to figure out what your name is. It's something. It doesn't matter that much. I will say you have a companion named Nessa, and she can talk to treasure boxes. That's her special ability. So you utilize her to basically suss out mimics in the logic puzzle portion of the game. Story is light. It is definitely not overly important, and it's not what you're here for. It's kind of super tacked on in a way. You're not on the edge of your seat hoping something's going to change or there's this big moment of whatever. Nothing is going to happen that's going to stun you. That's not why you're playing this game. Music, very chill, 16-bit RPG tunes. Great for puzzle solving, I will say. Unfortunately, we've been trying to layer in some music. I'm not entirely sure you'll hear anything here because I don't think the soundtrack is easily accessible other than in the game itself right now. But if you look up screenshots or if you are looking at the Steam page, it might not be super surprising. It's a fairly inexpensive game at only $4, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one or two people that made this game. So came out pretty recently. I hope that the OST will be accessible at some point in the future because it is actually really good. Like there's some tunes that are just really good, so like smooth RPG bangers. Basically, there's one that is very melancholy in a way. It's not very upbeat, but it is so soothing and good. And every time I get it, because it seems sort of randomized when you're going to hear certain songs on your runs, but man, every time I get that song, you're just kind of like, yeah, I just bump a little bit to it. It's nice. But with all that, I'm going to get to the gameplay now. And this is where I was like, this could take a long time or a short amount of time to explain how this game works. So, I don't even know exactly which part I should start with. There are two parts of the gameplay. First, I should mention it can be played, at least on PC, with a controller, with only a keyboard, or only a mouse. So I played it with mouse. Basically, you can just click around to the moon style and click on wherever you want your character to go, and that's what happens. And then basically, confirm is left click, and back out or cancel is right click. So that's all I did. I just played with the mouse the whole time. And it works very well. All right. I think I will talk about the logic puzzle part first. It is the part that I think anybody that's drawn to this game will be here for. So, basically, you walk your two characters into a dungeon. You can start at this home room, basically, and you walk out and then into a dungeon. And there sits between 4 and 9 chests. Each chest, you can talk to the chest, and Nessa, you can click a button that says talk to the chest or hear what the chests have to say, and Nessa can translate for you. Each chest has something to say, right? What you're basically trying to do is figure out which chests have the mimics in them. You do not want to open a chest that has a mimic, because as soon as you do, you lose. You go back to the beginning. You start again. Most main dungeons that you go through have 30 floors. So it is pretty intense. I mean, it sounds very intense when I say that. It's like, wow, that's a long time to not get a mimic. But you kind of get with the groove of it and start to flow with it and understand some specific things that the mimics might be telling you versus what the chest might be telling you. So the way you end up finding a mimic is mimics always lie. Chests always tell the truth. Obviously, you walk up to all these chests saying something. You're not sure at the time who's lying and who's telling the truth. You have to figure that out yourself. And the game, while you can get some items that will actually show you a chest that is not a mimic, and so you can just get a free chest, and then hopefully that mimic is telling you something that can help you figure out what the rest are. Most of the time, you don't have anything. You just have to figure it out, right? So I will give an example. I think is probably one of the easier examples to be able to figure out a mimic. Let's say I have 6 chests, and there is one mimic among these 6 chests. If I have any of the mimics say that another mimic is a mimic, right? So I have a chest that says, the chest to my right is a mimic. And then the chest to its right might say anything. It doesn't matter. There is a mimic. There is at least one mimic in a blue chest. regardless of what that other chest says. If the first chest says any other chest is a mimic, then you know one of those two chests is a mimic, right? One of them must be lying, because I know there's only one mimic, and if they're both mimics, then the mimic would be lying. If you know what I mean, like if they're both telling the truth, then the other one would be lying, right? So one of them is lying. So you can mark them with right clicks to put numbers on them. Then you can also mark them with left clicks to basically put a circle or an X based on whether they're a mimic or not. So if I know there's only one mimic, and I know there's a mimic between those two chests, then I can freely open the rest of them. And hopefully one of the other ones gives me a hint that might be able to suss out the difference between those two, right? And then I can pick that one. Maybe one of the other ones says, okay, I got true. There is all these I just opened, right? I've got the gear, which I'll get to, but I can get gear out of, or gold out of all of these other chests that aren't mimics. One of them might say, there are no mimics in red chests. Well, there is a red and a blue chest out of the two that I thought were mimics. So I guess, since I know now, because that other one, it wasn't lying, I opened it, it's good. I know now that there's no mimic in that red chest. I can open that one, the other one's the mimic, right? That's an example of kind of how you play this game.
Even that example was way too much for me. I would get eaten by these mimics so fast. I would lose mental Minesweeper in an instant. Okay, I can't do it.
It is Minesweepery in a way, but I'm telling you, you think that in my initial start of this game, I was getting frustrated because I was like, wow, I am just a big dump. Maybe I'm too stupid for this game, and I just can't do it. But of course, the way I am, I've explained, I'm a competitive person, so I could not quit. I had to keep trying. Eventually, you start to understand what they want from you. No. And if you are into puzzle games, I cannot imagine a person who wouldn't immediately be addicted to this type of game. So, yes, probably the way I explained it, it's kind of hard to, with just words, to kind of figure out what's what. But when it's all on screen for you, it's not as hard. You start to kind of figure it out, and there's patterns that repeat as you move through, and then you start to kind of figure out, okay, this and this and that and the other thing. And plus, something that I learned very early on is before you go into any dungeons, you can actually talk to Nessa, and you can go through her hint, basically, where she'll give you, hey, in this situation, this is what you should do, right? And there's only like 5 of them, but they help so much. And I wish I would have talked to her the second I started playing the game rather than waiting, a couple dungeons, because it would have helped so much. It made so much more sense when she explained it. There is something called a gut meter, which initially I thought, oh, this is going to break this game for me. I hate this. But in any roguelike, I'm saying roguelike because it's more of a true roguelike than a roguelite. Even though there is meta progression, you do get to gain things as you move through the game. I say it's a roguelike because one of the, I think, primary things of most roguelikes is that there is a hunger meter of some kind. Or as you move through these mazes, your character becomes more fatigued or something, right? You have to give them items to keep them going. This game has what it calls a gut meter, which is basically hunger. And every time you are staring at all the chests, trying to figure out what's a mimic, your gut meter is constantly dropping.
Rude.
Yes.
Don't time pressure my brain.
I know. Initially, I was like, this sucks. Like, I hated it so much.
Stressing me out just thinking about it.
I'm here to tell everyone that it does not drop all that fast. It's not counting down an insane amount. It's probably like one gut per 10 to 15 seconds. And I just mentioned how there's meta progression. Every time you get through the level, you don't even have to get all the way through the level. It's basically every time you complete a floor, you get an adventure point, and then you can go back and spend those adventure points on whatever you want. But there's multiple different things you can do. Either you can increase your starting HP, you can increase your basically what I'm getting to is you can increase or decrease, I guess, the amount of time it takes for each gut to drop off, right? So the gut meter falls more slowly. And I invested in that pretty early so that I could get that. I want more time to solve the logic puzzles. But as I played this game, I started solving the logic puzzles so much more quickly. I don't think I ever ran into a time, even from when I was first starting, when I died in this game because of getting too hungry. So it is not something that's super concerning. That's
other thing. Good game design there, right? Like they're threatening you with something that like would bum you out, but it never actually bums you out. So they just give you the fear with no consequences, which is kind of ideal. It's like sort of the perfect balance.
Right. It's there because once you notice that it's ticking down, you're like, oh, I need to think quickly. And that's what they want you to do. And that is what they want you to do, but it's not overly punishing. Like you're not going to get punished for it. Now, if you want to get certain, I will say there's no Steam achievements tied to this, but there are certain in-game items that you can unlock, and the only way you can unlock them is for opening as many chests as possible and doing it as quickly as possible, right? You have to get a high score. So that's where you're kind of chasing and pushing your brain to its limit. Speaking of opening chests, one of the, I think, coolest things about this game, so you walk into a room and you want to open as many chests as possible because they have loot in them. You can get gear that you can equip your character with that increases your attack and your defense, and you can get, items. And this is the other thing about gut. You always get plenty of items, and they're also cheap in shops where you can restore your gut. So that's the other reason why it's never a huge issue. But you get all this stuff in gold from chests, so you want to open as many chests as possible. But there are going to be times when either you're feeling pressed for time, or there is truly certain times when the puzzle is technically unsolvable for all of the chests. There's an example is there are two mimics that are pointing at each other. Or I shouldn't say two mimics, two chests that are pointing at each other, saying both of them are mimics. So one mimic says the one on the right is a mimic. The other one says the one on the left is a mimic. And so you're like, okay, I know there's a mimic among them. I'm going to open all the other chests. But none of the other chests give you a clue as to which one of those other two chests isn't a mimic. So it's frustrating. It's like, okay, what do? I don't know which one. I can do a 50-50. And then I will, I got a 50% chance of just dying right now. But instead of punishing you or making you pick, you can just move on. You literally don't have to do any of the puzzles if you don't want to.
Okay.
The reason you will be punished for it is what we will go into now, the other gameplay type, which is the roguelike battle style type. You need increasingly better gear, more money to purchase things at shops, to be able to beat the enemies every so many floors. Like every 5 or 3 to 5 floors, you're going to have enemies that come rather than chests. And you have to have enough gear to not only be able to defeat them, but also not get killed yourself. So you have to have decent armor, you have to have a decent amount of health, and if you don't have enough health, then you need to have healing potions, right? There's healing potions. But if you don't have money, or if you didn't open up any chests, you're going to die. Like you have to get so many chests. So that's why I think those two styles work together so well. Initially I was like, this battle part's kind of silly, right? It's really just pushing the logic puzzle part. But I can tell you the reason I kept going back is because of how the two coincide. They just work really well together to make you want to continue to beat the logic puzzles so that you can then beat the battles. And eventually on the 30th floor, you have like a boss. It's one of the most anticlimactic final boss of any game, because the fun part is getting to that boss. And then the boss is basically a stat check. Did you do enough to get here? And then you just click them a couple times and you win. Or if you didn't, then you lose. But when you actually beat that boss, it lasts 3 seconds. But you beat that boss, you feel good. You're like, I did it. I made it through all those mimics. I didn't get eaten, and I got here. And that makes you feel good, right?
Nice.
There's towns that you can buy stuff from. You can replenish your health and gut. You can talk to different NPCs, and they can, one random NPC has like a scratch off ticket that can give you extra money depending on how many stars you scratch, right? So it's pretty basic in a lot of ways, but has an incredibly addictive loop, I think, especially for anybody who is into logic puzzle type games and or roguelikes. So this is one of the toughest times I've had of where I should put it on the quest log. And I'm just going to tell you that, guys, that right now, because I'm still thinking about it while hopefully you have a question or two.
My main go ahead.
I was going to say, my question is, does it have systems in place to like encourage you to replay stuff? Like all the modern roguelites have, the equivalent of heat in Hades, some way to layer on extra difficulty or extra modifiers to make future runs harder. Does it have something in that vein?
So you start out with, I will say, 3 different dungeon types. The regular dungeon type is called standard, and it's everything that I explained to you. I didn't want to spoil too much, but we'll do a little bit here. Standard is everything that I've already talked about. Then there's expert, which is basically similar to standard, except for the chests don't give you as good of hints. Okay. They still give you once you kind of learn different stuff. For example, a chest in expert might just say, "Oh, there's gold in the top row," and that's it. That doesn't help you determine where a mimic is, right? Yeah. Because it's not pointing at another chest saying this is a mimic, where a mimic is. It's just saying there's gold here. But as you continue to play, it's like, oh, well, if there's gold in the top row, then I know if there's 3 chests in the top row or 2 chests in the top row, and that one's telling the truth, then at least one of those isn't a mimic, because gold, if there's gold in a chest, it can't be a mimic, right? So you kind of start to take those hints similarly as how you do in standard. And then there's a dungeon called random. And at first I was like, this sucks. Like I don't like random. The reason it's called random is because it ramps up, each dungeon ramps up in difficulty as you climb them, or I guess delve down into them. But random is like, from the beginning it says, I have either 1 or 2 mimics in this puzzle. I have 1 or 1, 2, 3 mimics. I might have 1, I might have 2, I might have 3. So you really have to be careful with what you trust in those. And then after you beat level 1 of those 3, it unlocks like 6 more different dungeon types.
Oh, dang. All right.
There's so much. Okay. And every dungeon has multiple levels. Like not only do you delve down into them, but you start at level 1. After you beat level 1, it unlocks level 2 for standard dungeon, then level 3. Yes, I have played this game for, I think, close to 15 hours in the last week. So, and I haven't even scratched it. There's so much more to do.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my question is like, this just seems so complicated to like program. Like I don't know if that's not really a question, but like do like some of the logic puzzles break? Like because it's randomized each time?
Yeah, it is always random.
Is it like
yep.
Yeah, is it like when you click on it, like none of these are mimics sometimes, or is it like some of these hints don't make any sense to lead you to a mimic sometimes? Like that's the part where I would be like, how is that even possible to do so much randomization like that and still it work?
You're darn right about that, Josh. But I think the only time where I would say it's quote unquote broken is when there is you cannot figure out a correct answer, like I talked about before. There's 2 mimics pointing at each other, and none of the other chests that you open up, there's 2 chests pointing at each other, none of the other chests that you open up are pointing at either of those being mimics. So it's not technically broken, you just can't solve it. And the game encourages you, when a puzzle, either of your own stupidity or because it actually cannot be solved perfectly, it encourages you to just move on. Like sometimes got to move on.
That's good.
So it's just like life, or whatever. Like just move on. Right. Like you can't sit here and torture yourself over this. Your gut's decreasing. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to miss out on a couple hundred gold and a sword. You got some stuff. Move on. Take a shot at the next one. So
I like it.
Cool. I like that.
All right. So, any other questions before I put it on the quest log?
No, I want to know where you're going to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So, I am completely and have been completely addicted to this game. At first, it was a little bit of a torturing experience, but it turned into almost a soothing experience. Once you get going with it, it becomes one of those. The reason so I thought about this before coming on. There are reasons for both main quests and side quests on this one. The reason I might put it on the side quest is because you guys can imagine it's pretty darn niche. I think about how many people can I seriously recommend this game to that would love it. I think that usually we say a main quest game is something that we could recommend to almost anyone. But then I started thinking about it, and we hear more and more about how the older we get, the more we should tease our brain by playing Wordle, by playing any of those kinds, Sudoku, right? Really good for you to do this kind of stuff, which is why, with how addictive it is and how good the loop is, regardless of the graphical fidelity, I am going to put it on the main quest today. I think, I think it deserves a main quest bid. If only just so more people, hopefully out of our audience, will check this game out. And before I even move on from that, there's been times when, we get games where we play them and we're like, oh, this person would like this game, this person would like this game. Steve, you said earlier, oh man, this is too much for my brain. I'm telling you, you would love this game.
I mean, I've been staring at it the whole time, like, kind of licking my chops.
It's based on the games that you have played in the past. You like a good puzzler.
I do like a good puzzler.
You like something that's trying to break your brain. And this one will nearly do it at certain points. But once you get your brain around what it's asking for, it becomes such a fun loop. Like, I recommend this game to two specific people. Steve, and if he's listening, Burger Champ would also like this game. I know for a fact it's that kind of puzzling burger game that he would just dig. Yeah. So,
dude, I love it.
Awesome.
Solid main quest choice. I also like that it's on the main quest kind of for the same reasons that Brain Age was successful on the DS. You're like, we just got to keep our brains cooking, baby. All right?
Can you tell me that Brain Age isn't a good game?
I cannot.
Yes, it's good. I mean,
it's a good game. Yeah.
It is pretty sick of me. Not indie though.
No.
Kind of when I saw the graphics and I saw the game, I was like, okay, cool little cozy side quest. So this is a nice surprise to me. Like, I actually this was a big surprise. Like, I didn't expect it to be a main quest game, but I agree with your how you came to bring it to that side.
The other thing is, to me, if it didn't have legs, if it was 4 hours hard stop, then it would probably be a side quest. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure you could play this game for 100 hours. Without a doubt, to try to achieve everything, collect everything, do the speed run side of it, unlock all it would take forever. So
it's kind of like a Balatro, where you can play Balatro and do a run in an hour, or you can sit there and get real nerdy about it and do every single deck and all that. Right?
Every time I fire it up, I'm kind of like, which dungeon do I want to play today? Like, how do I want my brain to be teased? So it's very cool in that way. I think the only thing holding it back from like a solid main quest is it's not extremely inviting. I will say it's kind of it's a little rough around the edges. You can't even play in full screen. It's windowed only. It is crazy.
Okay. That's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah. Love it.
Good stuff. All right. Main
Kick
quest,
it over to you
Mimic
guys.
Logic.
Yes.
I can go.
I don't care who goes next.
I can go. Otherwise, we'll just sit here just courteously handing it back and forth the whole time.
You know, one thing I did want to mention. This is going to be randomly just inserted here because we're going to forget if we don't mention the April Fool's Day joke of in the quest.
In the quest.
Yes.
That our friends made.
This is our basically mid-episode plugs right here. It works perfectly.
Yep.
Yeah, why not? Pretty much a few people from the community made a April Fool's episode of our IQOST, kind of parodying us. And honestly, I thought it was amazing. So
they picked really good songs, and they did a really good job. So it's like,
yeah,
they did. The funniest part, and I could not tell. I'm pretty sure it was a joke. It could very well be that they weren't joking, but it doesn't matter. The funniest part, the part that got me rolling, was when all three of them were like, I don't know a lot about music. Because we say that all the time. Like, I'm not that musically inclined, but this sounds pretty good to me. Like, that's it.
Yeah. I think Scotch said that like 3 times or something,
and
I was
so
like,
funny.
yeah, it's so good. And then who goes next? I lost track. That's me. I do that every time we do one of those. Yeah, it was so good. So if you guys want to check that out, it's on Potomax's YouTube. We'll leave a link in the description there, and go listen. It's a episode length. It's a little over an hour, and there's some good tracks in there, and it's a nice little parody of the show. So
yeah, it was very good.
I was very heartwarmed to listen to.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was extremely cool. So thank you so much to them for doing that. It was so much fun. Thank you. All right. I brought a game today. That's the assignment, right? I was told I had to, so I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like last episode, I'm digging back, all right? I have this compulsion, this urge to fill some gaps in the quest log, to put some stuff from what is almost distant past at this point onto our quest log. So I went back. I played a game that released in 2012.
Whoa!
Thomas Was Alone. That's 12 years old, you guys. This game is 12 years old. It's in middle school.
This game for me is like an enigma because I myself haven't played it, and I have barely looked at anything on it, but I feel like it gets brought up in the Discord constantly.
Yeah.
There's always someone mentioning Thomas Was Alone.
It's one of those that it's a very foundational indie. It comes from an era like not too dissimilar from like a Fez and stuff like that, where there's just these are one of these like inspirational games that led a whole decade at this point of developers to go on and to do their own thing. So, Thomas Was Alone is developed and published by Bithell Games, which is really Mike Bithell, who's a developer who has worked on this and then has gone on to work on a lot of other things as well. Like I said, it came out November 12th, 2012, and it is on like maybe more than any other game I've ever talked about. It was on literally everything. It is on PC, Mac, Linux. It's on PlayStation 3, 4, 5, and Vita. It's on iOS and Android. It's on Xbox. It's on Wii U, and it's on Switch. Like, I challenge you to find me a system that you can't play Thomas Was Alone on. It's going to be there.
This is a toaster game. You can play it on your toaster.
100% it's a toaster game. And this is not going to take that long to describe because the game is intentionally very simple. So it is at its core just a like straightforward kind of rectangular based level based puzzle platformer. So you're dropped into a level and your goal is to navigate to the end to get to this white outline that matches the outline of your character. And the early levels are like dead simple. It's like, jump over a single pit, jump up a staircase, things like that. And then the first layer that the game adds on is it adds multiple different characters that you can control. So you'll have, every character in the game will have different, basically physics, different jump physics or different movement physics. So one character might be, wider, but is able to jump less. Or one character will be, skinnier and they can jump a lot higher. And so you'll need to kind of work them together to navigate to the end of the level. And in situations where there are multiple enemies, which is honestly most situations, where there are, or not multiple enemies, where there are multiple characters, in most levels with multiple characters, there are multiple exits. And your goal is to line up each character on their respective exit point. So it's not just getting everyone to one spot. You have to get each of the people to a particular spot that matches them, which means that you have to add like some extra logic into your decision making about how you navigate these characters around the world, what order you do things in, who you're trying to get to the highest part of the level first, stuff like that. Now, all that to say, it's still a pretty straightforward game. Like, this is, it almost feels like raw game design. Like, it is just like boxed out levels with, like, you know, early levels will be relatively simple, teaching you certain things the game wants you to know, and then they'll, you know, give you a harder version of that 1 or 2 levels later, and then they'll remix that and turn your expectations on their head 1 or 2 levels after that. It's very much trying to, like, just sort of take you through a journey. And the reason the gameplay is, I think, what these days would feel very straightforward is that a lot of the focus in this game is making you care about these characters that you otherwise wouldn't expect to care about because they're just colored rectangles.
Yeah.
Like, that is the thing. Mm-hmm. Every character in this game is basically like a Tetris piece. Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
so each of these characters, as you play through them, you'll actually get like a sense of their personality and their relationships with one another, and like the emotions that they're bringing to the puzzle platformer, which sounds very weird and also sounds like, well, what the hell, how is that even possible? But it's because the entire game is narrated kind of like Bastion style. Over every level, as you're doing things, there's a constant narration it's done by Danny Wallace. He's done an incredible job. And he's like, oh, you know, Thomas observed the pit of water in front of him and thought to himself, how am I ever going to cross this? It's not just a drop in the pond for Thomas. And, you know, gives personality and life to basically every single character. And by the time you get through the game, which doesn't take that long, you know, you will have grown very attached to some of these characters, and you will be like rooting for or against them. You'll be like hoping that 2 characters are like gonna make amends or that they'll stay friends. It's surprising the level of emotional depth that they can give these things just with like basic movement and the narration.
I'm going to draw what might be an odd comparison, but you're talking about personifying, humanizing these shapes, right?
Yeah.
I think it isn't on the same level, but something that I would consider similar is what a lot of people consider to be one of the greatest video game stories of all time, Final Fantasy VI, is these sprites, right? And when you show someone just the graphical style of FF6 on Super Nintendo, like, look at this, and they just see a couple screenshots, and you tell them that this is one of the best stories of all time that you've ever read, watched, or played, they're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
I can barely even tell what I'm looking at here. It's just a bunch of pixels shoved together. And this is even more basic, but it just goes to show that with good storytelling, you don't need the greatest graphics. You just need a couple colors.
Yeah, 100%. This is very much, not to be like derogatory, but this is programmer art, right? This is boxing out the things and then just never actually getting around to hiring an artist to turn them into full-fledged characters. But I mean, that like abstraction actually works to the game's benefit, and it makes you appreciate the characters that much more. To give folks an example of what I mean about like the type of personality that these characters will have, I really don't want to spoil any of the story beats or the relationships or anything, but like, you know, relatively-ish early in the game, maybe like level 30 or something, which sounds like a lot, but these levels are snappy. Some of these take like 5 to 10 seconds. You'll meet a character who's like a tall vertical line block from Tetris, and when you play as him, you can jump like 3 times farther or higher than any other character that you've played up to this point. And then you learn that that character has become kind of egotistical and sort of standoffish because they feel like, oh, I'm the best rectangle. Like, no one else can jump half as good as I can. I don't need to waste my time with these other chumps, these losers, these has-beens. All right, I'm top line. That's all me. And so that's like the personality that comes with them. And all the characters have that in a way where it's like, damn, how did you think to write these? This is just genius.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just very I don't think I played this since it came out, so 12 years ago. And what stuck with me the most is just how clever it was for the time, especially because I mean, a lot of games are inspired by this, I'm sure nowadays, but like how bare bones it is and how much it tells, like you said, is just it's pretty amazing. It's pretty much just it's kind of like Toy Story. It's Toy Story.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's because when you were describing the long skinny block, I was like, yeah, that's Woody. Yeah, he's a head honcho toy, and anyway, but yeah, it's definitely a classic for a reason. So
yeah, and you look at modern games that we've brought to the show. I mean, like Planet Alana. Now, obviously, you could draw back the lineage of Planet Alana much more to something like a Limbo, but like, there's no denying that Thomas was alone, sort of like establishing some of these ways of investing you in its characters without actually having to explicitly tell you everything. Now, it tells you some stuff. There's a narrator who's constantly talking, but not having to tell you everything is like it's cool to see 12 years on what that has become, and I'm very excited to see 12 years later what will that grow into even further. Very, very cool. In terms of like getting through the entire game, again, I think your experience of playing this, I guess it depends if you're replaying it or playing it for the first time, and also kind of where you are in terms of puzzle platformers. I think at the time this game came out, it was probably, fairly difficult, or like the challenge was tuned. But we've had 12 years of puzzle platformers of kind of like increasing difficulty at this point, and with added mechanics and twists and stuff. And so I think anyone that has played a fair amount of puzzle platformers in the last decade will go back to this and find it to be pretty simple and pretty basic. It was, in my replay, I was surprised to see that I kind of like always knew what to do before I actually had to execute it. Like, I never had to stop and think like, okay, should this character go there? This character go there? It's kind of like I hit the ground, like I, pressed A at the right time in Mario Kart. I turbo boosted off the line, and then I never had to let off the accelerator until I hit the exit. It was just like jump, 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 jump. That didn't mean that it wasn't fun. It just was a different experience than I was otherwise expecting. So if you are that type of more seasoned platformer player, going back to this, I imagine that you'll probably get a little bit of nostalgia and still a strong appreciation for the story. But this is also kind of a really good introductory puzzle platformer if it's a genre you really haven't engaged with much before, because not only is the difficulty tuned down just a little bit relative to contemporaries, but also the game does a really good job and is very thoughtful about teaching you everything you need to know before you need to execute it in any complex situation at all. And it can do that with its like snappy level structure. So
this is somewhat of an interesting question for this game or any game that, I guess it could happen to me too, but you guys have played a lot of indie games, especially back in the day, I'll say. Now, you replayed Thomas is Alone for this, or was alone, sorry. Do you think, or I'm asking you both this is just kind of an off the cuff, maybe we could talk about this in more depth, but do you think that you might have put Thomas Was Alone on the quest log differently back when you played it versus how you would now because of the experiences you've had in the last 12 years? And we're not there yet, and that's okay. I just wonder, right? Because you can't scrub all the other games that you've played that are similar to this game from your memory. It's like Fez, right? Fez, there's been so many games that have come out since Fez, and I still think Fez is a fantastic game, but you can't say that Fez isn't like all these other games when you've played them. It's not Fez's fault. Fez might have paved the way, but it's worth questioning, right?
I'm curious to hear what Josh has to say about this, because that thesis is going to come back around when we get to the end of this discussion.
I honestly,
okay.
When I revisit like older games or games I've played before, like there's always nostalgia involved, or it's like, oh man, I kind of want to get back to that world, or I want to get back into that story and just experience it again, and I kind of know what's going to happen, or whatever. It really would be hard for me to make a good call unless I replayed it now. Like if I played it like last weekend, I could be like, oh yeah, Thomas Was Alone. It aged well, But what is aging well at this point, right? Because you're like, that game inspired X game, which inspired X game, which inspired X game at this point. And it's like maybe there is some lineage in Cocoon, or like you were saying, Planet Alana. There's some of that lineage is there from Thomas Was Alone, because that was something that inspired 15 devs that expired 15 devs or whatever, all the way down the line for 12 years. So it's like, yeah, I'd have to play it and then make that judgment. But when I played it back in the day, I would have instantly put it on the main quest because I just thought it was brilliant at the time. So for now, I wouldn't be able to make that call.
I don't know that we've ever applied our mythical points, I will say, to anything that that is like close to what we would call inspiration, right? I put World of Goo on the side quest, and World of Goo, a lot of people would have put on the main quest based on the nostalgia. We heard about it, after I did that, right? But I had never played it, and there's games like it since. So that was my thought process there, right? So I feel like Thomas Was Alone is in a similar boat because it's also very old, like World of Goo.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I will say, and I don't think there's any wrong answer to that. Like, you made the decision at that point to put World of Goo on the side quest. I think that made perfect sense. I also think you could have made this a similar but different case for putting World of Goo on the main quest, and I would have equally agreed with you. I'm not saying which way I'm going to end up going, but I think that it is there is complication there when you're talking about both things that were kind of foundational, pivotal indies like this, but also games that I personally have nostalgia for. Like, I played this game right when it came out in like kind of my like budding teenage years of discovering indie alongside everybody else, and it was like kind of an eye-opening time for me to like see what is out there and like expand and develop my own personal game tastes. How do I completely remove it? Anyways, we'll get to that in a few minutes, but I do want to round this out by saying that the game is a pretty concise experience if you're looking to check out a puzzle platformer. I don't everyone has a different barometer for spoilers here, so I'm gonna say words that you could consider a spoiler, but it's a 12-year-old game and this doesn't actually spoil anything. But if you want to know literally nothing about Thomas Was Alone, you can jump ahead 20 seconds. You gone? If you're driving, I'm giving you a second to jump ahead 20 seconds. Okay, you're gone now. There's 100 levels in this game, and each of them taking like sometimes 5 to 10 seconds. It really does not take particularly long to get through a lot of them. I think the longest level you're going to play through maybe takes 5 minutes, and that is probably more execution than understanding. It's more like, okay, I see I have to do the same thing, but I have to do the same thing, kind of like rotating these characters through a logic 6 times to get to them to the spot. A very common type of puzzle that happens early on is like, you have a character that can't quite jump upstairs, but another character who's shorter, and so you plant them in between the 2 stairs, and then you've created a smaller set of stairs that the other character can go up, and then the other one can jump up, and you kind of like teamwork staircasing up to a higher destination, that type of thing. There are like collectibles, if that's your thing. That's not really the point of this game, and it almost feels like the type of game where like maybe Mike felt an obligation to add something that gives a little bit more depth, or maybe he really just wants you to like explore the worlds a little bit more. But they're pretty subtle. They're just like very small little black dots that will appear usually kind of in slightly out of the way places or up in the corner. Sometimes they're difficult to execute, but more often they're just like kind of hiding in plain sight, and once you find them, they're not too difficult to collect. So it's all good. Great game. It goes down so smooth. The narration is fantastic. It's all set underneath by like this really cool electronic sort of light piano, usually pretty upbeat, computery sounding soundtrack by David Houston. Really, really good. Very listenable outside of the game, and it's just all in all, it's just a package that comes together so well, considering it, it's like essentially one guy with the assistance of a few others spearheading the whole thing. So before I get into my logic about where I'm placing it, do you have questions?
I don't have anything specific other than what we've already talked about. I do want to say, Steve, you did a good job of like talking through the graphics, but I love this simplistic, but then also randomly throws in this intense polish of like the shadows that come off the shapes and the light that seems to shine through in different levels. it's all like it's Atari, but then the lighting effects are like PS4. It's so weird.
Yeah, and it's very cool. It's dynamic too. So as you move through the level, the shadows are like moving and like light is bending around realistically. So you're casting shadows, as you get closer, your shadow behind you to the light source, your shadow behind you gets way bigger on the walls and stuff like that. It's really cool. So
very, very Fez-like in that way, I imagine.
Yeah, very well. Again, kind of the thesis statement of the game. It's doing a lot with a little. It's exceeding the sum of its parts for sure. So, quest placement. This comes down a lot to what Drachma was just saying, right? Like, how do we analyze a game like this that has like so much sort of historical context and also so much personal meaning and has in some ways kind of like aged out, right? It's now I'm not a big sports guy, but I think of this of like the arguments for like the greatest player of all time, right?
Jordan versus LeBron.
Yeah, you compare any record from 30 years ago, like the game is just different at this point. And so on paper, it looks like one guy is crushing, but you give context to the time period that person was in. Right?
Yeah,
makes sense.
You can't make a player, if we're going to do the same analogy, you can't make a player who is now 60 play a game against 25-year-olds. You can't make Thomas Was Alone. I mean, yes, you can re-release it, but you can't take it away from when it already was and just pluck it off from back then out of everybody's brains and release it now. Yes. But I imagine this game would still be a hit in 2024. Right?
And that's the thing. I'm not trying to say we need to completely remove our desire to analyze this game or games like this from how fun they are to play in 2024. Like, I'm a big believer that, this isn't really a retro game, but I'm a big retro game player, that retro games are still like fun, valid, enjoyable games in 2024. Yeah. But we can't deny that there are certain things that are just hard. They're just bumpy relative to our current level of comfort as we play through a game. And so I kind of like tumbled all this in my brain, and my logic kind of went like this. I was sort of like, Thomas Was Alone. It's a classic. It deserves its placement on the main quest. Like it does. And my thought kind of stopped and stopped there. And then I was like, well, when I think about it, this is a pretty simple game now. It really, from the gameplay perspective, even from the storytelling perspective, isn't doing things that you wouldn't be able to find in other games. It's not really kind of unique in the way that it was in 2012. So, maybe time has, rusted off, some of that sheen a little bit. We put it on the side quest. But then, in my brain, it sat there on the side quest, and I was like, this feels wrong. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my thumb on the scale a little bit. I don't care how much it's rusted a little bit. And so I put it back onto the main quest. I think, sometimes I have this desire. I think we all have this desire to approach our placement or our discussion with some objectivity. And that just doesn't exist. Like, our experience with these games is subjective to the context we played them in, now, in the past, in the future. So all that considered, all that sort of mixed into one bowl. That is why, that's the journey I went on. And that's why ultimately we're going to end up placing it on the main quest. It is a game that was worth your attention, certainly, and worth the praise when it came out. And it's still a game worth attention. And how much someone out there listening to this is going to enjoy it is going to be reflective, I think, of how much of this type of game they've played or their experience level with games in general. But all in all, it is certainly deserving of its placement.
That's awesome. Every time I see this one brought up, it's like, man, I need to get around to that one. I need to be a good indie boy and play one of these classics,
I mean, how long is that game? It's like 3 hours, right? It's pretty short.
Yeah, when I replayed it, I did it all in one big sitting in like 3 hours. It's not too bad. And having never played it before, it'll take you a little bit longer, but I don't think you'll struggle too much with it. You're a smart old whippersnapper.
I'm so excited. Josh, I feel like it's going to be easy for you to pick a title for this one because both Steve and I have been on the fence or we're wavering between the side quest and the main quest today. So Should be a good one.
Well, mine, I know exactly where I'm putting mine. So let's get going here on my pick. All right. So I brought a game. Okay. So, let's rewind back. I'll talk about the game, but let's do a little anecdote for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I am as everybody knows, I'm a huge Minecraft fan, right? I love the game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. If somebody sat me down and held a gun to my head, I would say, oh yeah, Minecraft's my favorite game of all time, right? So I got into these things called parkour maps, which are basically, you can imagine it. You're just jumping across things. I made a parkour map called Trials of Virtue back in the day. And this game is inspired by Minecraft parkour maps. And the game is called Beton Brutal. Have you heard anything about this game? Seen it on any lists or anything like that?
No,
I have not.
I don't know anything
either, and I need you to spell that for me, Josh.
Okay. So it's I actually had to contact Potomax for this one because he's our our French guy in the building, and so it's actually concrete and French. So it's Beton, brutal, like brutal legend or whatever.
Okay.
So Beton Brutal, and that's how you spell it. All caps. Usually that's how he shows it here. This is a game made by one guy. His name is Jan Malachek, and from what I can tell is he used to make parkour maps and loved doing it in Minecraft and made a game based around this concept. But this is actually a fully fledged game. It's kind of like getting over it with Bennett Foddy, going up or only up. The game's basically where you're climbing something really tall, and if you fall, the fall is horrible, and you usually lose a lot of progress, and then you have to do the climbing again.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the whole theme of this game. It's set in like this concrete, hence the name Beton or Beton, however you pronounce it, concrete tunnel that's going up, and basically have to logic puzzle your way. Well, not logic puzzle like, mimic logic, but logic your way up to the top by trying to figure out where the next area to jump at is or how to get to the next area. A lot of it is climbing ladders, doing very precise jumps on like steel pipes and girders, and it gets more complicated as you get to the top of this really menacing looking and kind of creepy at times, but also kind of beautiful at times, I would say, world, and just really interesting looking. It's hard to describe. It kind of has a low poly look to it. Maybe, like I said, inspired kind of by Minecraft, but it's not voxely. It's more like just like flat shaded, like Quake style or something, like more classic looking. But the lighting and the way they do the lighting makes it look very epic and awesome all the time.
I think it looks fantastic. I mean, honestly, that's what I was going to like. It looks. Maybe this is because I only really ever play PS3 Minecraft, classic Minecraft, but this looks like modded Minecraft, right? Like new
almost,
PC Minecraft. It's I think it's pretty.
Like they put shaders on it, right? Yes. They put like the fanciest shaders on Minecraft or something. And the thing about it, the reason why I can tell it plays just like Minecraft parkour does. Like it even has, like I was playing on PC to play through this game, and the control button is shift, and that's like a thing from Minecraft. Like most games, I'm not shift. Control button is shift. What am I saying? The sprint button is shift, and then shift is. Oh, I can't even. I'm confusing myself. Can you tell I'm confusing myself? It's reverse. Control is running and sprinting, and then shift is squatting down, and so you can like basically hold down the shift button and like look over the side without falling, basically. And that's Minecraft. So, and the ladder hitboxes in this game are exactly the same as Minecraft. So there's like a couple of ladders, like it's literally feels exactly the same as playing Minecraft, which is funny. And there's some analogous things in the world. Like there's like these bounty blocks that are kind of like greenish tint, and they're basically like slime blocks from Minecraft that you can bounce off. So it's like he literally took that template and made his own version of it. And it does get a little more creative. And I think that, it's just a fancier version of that, I would say. But so to me, it wasn't extremely challenging. I actually did a whole run in about 4 hours. I know that sounds not that it sounds like a long time maybe to be doing that, but I've seen some runs go for 12, 15 hours because it does get really difficult near the top. And you'll be like, okay, I'm trying to jump across these 3 or 4 posts, and then you'll just fall like 400 meters and have to redo huge sections of the game. So it's very brutal in that respect.
I kind of lied when I said I am unfamiliar with Minecraft parkour maps. I think maybe I've seen videos where the focus wasn't the Minecraft. They were just like discussion talking videos. And it's people like in Minecraft, but shooting on like these huge, like slippery ramps and like making huge jumps and stuff. Is this the same type of deal?
Yeah, so basically it's the TikTok video where someone's having a conversation, like Reddit comments or whatever, and then there's like a Minecraft dude jumping and doing slippy slidey things.
I've seen that type of thing before.
Yeah, that is a parkour map, Minecraft parkour map. So it's that idea abstracted into like an independent like game jam type of game where he made his own game. And I just thought it was really, really fun. Like I said, I made a parkour map when I was like noodling around in Minecraft back in the day. Like I love that genre of like challenge maps in that game. So to me, this is just like, giving me a piece of cake, and I'm just like enjoying the hell out of it, but for a normal person, this is going to be a really challenging, not a crazy person like me. It's going to be a really challenging and probably frustrating experience, I would say. But it's definitely streamer bait a little bit, where somebody gets to the top of the whole huge hole, and then they fall and fall and fall. Oh no! And then they scream and all that stuff, have their reactions. But
they do.
I think that, yeah, exactly. I think once you get to a certain point, though, I think it's 500 meters you have to climb up, which is actually pretty high. Every 100 meters or so, there's kind of like a fail safe, so you don't fall too far down, and they kind of purposely do that so you don't like fall all the way down to the bottom every single time,
That's
so
nice.
So if you're up like 350, you're probably going to fall down to like 280, 300, somewhere around there. So you'll have to redo some of the challenges a few times. So it's not too bad. And since it's in a first person mode, they do have a little, so on keyboard, it's F, you press F and you can kind of like float away from your character and like look around the environment close by where you're at. Kind of like, so it's like, okay, where do I go next? You can hit F and kind of do like a no clip cam kind of thing and look around, try to see it. It's kind of limited to like the scope around you. Like it's kind of like a bubble, it feels like, but you can kind of intuit where you need to go next, which is a really nice feature, I'd say, for something like this.
Yeah, that's cool. It's not something I've seen in very many other games. Maybe that is like coming from the Minecraft DNA of it all, but I've never really seen another game let you do that. Outside of like just kind of like jankily like trying to like twist camera in like a weird way around your character where that wasn't intentional to try to see around a corner. But yeah, that's cool.
I feel like I could be misremembering, but I feel like Sparks could do that in Spyro at some point. Like you could get like an aerial view from Sparks' eyes, but I don't know.
You might be right.
Yeah, like a later one, like the third one or something. Yeah, but yeah, so it's cool. It adds a lot to the game. A lot of times the progress is pretty minimal when you're climbing up, because you'll be like kind of climbing around. It's basically like a circular like giant pit that goes straight down pretty much, and you're kind of climbing slowly around that circle with different obstacles. And so like you might have a whole hour where you make like 25 meters of progress, or you might have a whole hour where you make 100 meters progress because you're just good at that section. And then there's like whole layers and sections of just like posts and pillars and ladders, and you're just like looking, and there's like a million ladders, like, okay, where do I even start? And then you kind of just slowly like puzzle it out. And that's the fun part about these things, is kind of just puzzling out how to do it and then getting good at it and executing it well. It just kind of clicks over in my mind a certain way. This isn't something I would like ever be like super into in speed run or anything, but the speed runs for this thing are like crazy to watch. People do this in like 10 minutes. They can just get all the way up to the top. They know all the shortcuts. There are occasionally like some shortcuts you can find. I found maybe 4 or 5 total, and it's like, oh, here's some ivy, and if you go behind this ivy, there's like a secret like ladder you can go up, and you like can skip portions of the level if you just happen to find that ladder. Or you can jump over here and maybe you can grab onto this ledge that you doesn't look like you should be able to, but hey, it actually saves 20 meters or whatever. So it does have little shortcuts like that. It has like a thing called vertigo, which you look down. It gives you like a percentage, or if you look up even, like the percentage will start ticking up. And if it's a higher vertical level, it actually gets a little bit like wobblier, your vision and stuff. So it kind of like gets you to where you don't want to look down too much or up too much. And it's another like kind of like layer to the mechanics, because you kind of want to like focus what's in front of you, not what's up or down below you. And there's little things that happen, like whenever you have a high vertical level, like little like shadows and things will be in the corner of your visions, and it gets kind of creepy at times too. It kind of has like a horror vibe feel to it. So
you're saying this is Eternal Darkness 2?
Sure.
No one else here played Eternal Darkness? Someone out there in their car is screaming, yes,
yes. I've heard about Eternal Darkness a bunch, but never played it myself. Maybe I should get back to that. I know it's that's a classic. But anyway, to me, this is something I didn't know I was looking for, and I just came across it, and I was just like, wait, this looks just like Minecraft parkour map, and the game's super cheap. I think it was like $5 or something, and then I was like, let's buy it, we'll try it out, and then I just got like sucked in, man. I was like, I'm gonna get to the top of this tower, hell or high water, and I did it in a couple settings, and enjoyed my time with it.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, I gotta know. I think the big question, and it seems like you're getting towards closer to the end here, but based on the gameplay and stuff, Josh, do you think that someone who either isn't into Minecraft or even maybe played some Minecraft like myself, but wasn't necessarily into like the parkour type stuff, is there much here for them? Would they get into it after they start playing it a while?
Yeah, I think that honestly, once you get the movement down, you get into it. Okay. I think if you're, and it's a tough game. It really is. So this one's kind of like I would say that it's kind of niche, however you say that. It's going to be a niche category, here, like off the bat, because this is a parkour game. It's a tough, challenging game with really, like, honestly, and they do the best sound effects, like when you fall, like it just sounds like you're defeated. Like it's like whoosh. It's like the biggest whoosh sound you've ever heard, and then you land and you're like, oh my god. The thing they do here, I notice, is like the music will be playing, and the music's pretty good. I didn't really mention it. It's kind of like a nice ambient, like electronic, and sometimes it gets a little more energetic beat here and there, but it's just nice and chill. It really does remind me of Minecraft from that angle too. The music's nice, relaxing, kind of like has some upbeat moments, but as soon as you fall, that music shuts off. So it'll be just like in the middle of a track, and then if you fall, it just cuts the sound, and then you hear that whooshing sound, and you're like, crap. So it's crushing, and it's almost crushing in a way that I can tell that some people would do it like a couple times, be like, I'm done with this, I'm not going to play this anymore. But to me, that was the challenge. I'm like, this is like my Dark Souls, like I'm going to get to the top of this. I'm going to defeat that big boss, Yep. So to me, it's like, I fell down 100 meters, but I've done this 40 meters like 50 times, already. I know how to do this. Get up real quick. All right, let's try this challenge again. Let's do it again and again. So it's very much that energy. But once you get that feel for it and you get the controls down, I think that if this interests you at all, you're going to have a good time, but it's definitely very challenging near the top. So I'll say that much.
Not surprised. It gives me a little bit of, based on that explanation, a little bit of Celeste 64 vibes or something.
I was just gonna say that's so crazy.
Yeah, it has that vibe for sure. And like, okay, so I mean, it's I'll give you a little spoilery thing, I guess. It's mild spoiler, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Okay, here's the spoiler. There are icy sections. There's ice platforms that you have to skid across. Woo, that's a huge spoiler. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so imagine that you're doing an ice platform above like a giant pit, and you have to be accurate and then land and bounce 3 or 4 times, and then hit another ice platform and slide, and then hit bounce 3 or 4 times above everything, basically. So
Dude,
yeah,
it sounds fun. I love stuff like that. I like a good, like, again, very Celeste 64, just like a tight, challenging, repetitive, like master your execution type of game.
Yeah, you just once you get the feel for it, it's just like second nature, man. It's to me, they have a second map of this. I think it's called like Beton Wash or Beton Pool. It's like a water themed one. I'll probably eventually try that out. He apparently, I was just looking at his Twitter too. He just put out an update with another map too. So it's like a passion project for one guy. I just wanted to kind of spotlight that today because I just thought it was a cool idea. And it's kind of gets overshadowed by like Only Up and things like that. I think this is like kind of like in that territory. And I think it's worth your time if that's something you're interested in.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
All right.
So where's it going, buddy?
I did have one other question.
Oh, my bad.
Very briefly.
Sure. You're good.
So in Minecraft, I feel like I did this some, but there's a way to like zoom out and be third person on Steve. Is there a way? Is it always first person? Not you, Steve. The Steve.
Oh, different guy.
Is there a way to third person this game? Because that is something in Minecraft that was always, at least for me, a little annoying, is because the perspective of first personing trying to jump a lot, right? It's like, it's a weird comparison, but I hate going like it's a fun thing for a minute, but I hate trying to first person a racing game for similar reasons because you can't like your surroundings, your boundaries, you can't really figure that out when you're first person versus when you can just look at your car in front of you, you know where your car is, right? So
yeah, I would say that if people have problems with first person platforming, they're probably not going to like this game. Just going to be honest. You can't play it in third person. You can do the little camera trick, like I said, like kind of orbit around your character to look around the environment before you snap back to first person and then start, platforming again, but it's all first person. Okay. So if that's not your bag, you're probably not going to enjoy it. So that makes it even more niche. Yeah. So obviously this is going to be a side quest game, right? Like this is like, I can't recommend this to everybody, but if any of this tickles your fancy or like anything sounds interesting enough for you to check this out, like if you like parkour, you like challenging games, you like to like learn a new style of challenging game, because this is like, it's not every day you see like a Minecraft inspired game platforming. I guess every day you do see Minecraft inspired games, whatever. But anyway, you don't see this style of game quite often where it's first person platforming where you have to like just, butt your head against the wall a bunch of times to get to the top of this thing. So I would love to see somebody do this and beat my time. I think my time was like a 4 hours and 16 minutes, something like that. Hey, if you want to try to beat my time, go try it out. Let me know. Nice. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are way better than me, but yeah, definitely a really fun time for me and for people like me that are a little bit, crazy. But hey, it's a good time.
We need some way to distract the people like you. Okay, so I'm glad you brought the game.
All right, so we had 3 awesome games brought to the quest log today. We had Mimic Logic on the main quest, and we had Thomas Was Alone, much deliberated, but on the main quest as well. And then we have Beton. I'm gonna say Beton Brutal or Beton Brutal. Beton Brutal. There we go. That's a bit Beton Brutal. Yeah. That's a side quest game. So, yeah, I'm watching the trailer here. I'm like, damn, I did that section so many times. Anyway, such a cool game. Yeah, definitely thought I'd bring that to people's attention because it's kind of flying. It's so small, I feel like it has looks like 59 reviews on Steam, so not bad.
Cool,
awesome,
good stuff.
So it's time for the plugs today. You can find the show at IndieQuestPod on Twitter. You can send us emails, IndieQuestPod@gmail.com. Check out that fun April Fool's Day joke, but also really heartwarming and crazy awesome little parody episode, IndieQuest. That's in the description here. Check that out. Just figured I'd shout that out again. Steve, where can they find you on the internet?
Twitch and Twitter or YouTube or anywhere online as Blinkoom, Blink OOM. Where can they find you, Drachma?
You can find me on Twitter at Captain Drachma, and of course in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet. If you want to get into that Discord, head on over to Patreon, search Polymedia, and choose the tier that gets you in the Discord. You find us there. Josh, where can I find you?
You can find me at Frantic Society on Twitter. And let's say you can find a bunch of awesome shows like Drunk Friend, Polykill, Point and Drink Adventure, Tales of Lesser Medium. We got Goosebumps. So many awesome shows at polymedianetwork.com. Check that out if you're interested in video games, movies, and nostalgic podcasts. So who wants to close this out today?
Josh, it's your turn.
Yeah,
boom. It's my turn. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you guys have a better time than trying to climb up a 500-meter dark concrete shaft in the middle of nowhere. Oh, that sounded gross. Have a great day. Hopefully you guys got to see the eclipse. If you didn't, I'll see you in 20 years, I guess. Yeah. Take it easy. Keep on playing those indie games, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Peace.